Rain was falling softly over the small town of Brookfield, where Maria stopped at a gas station on her way home from work. It was late evening, and the streetlights reflected on the wet road. She had just finished her second job at a small diner and was feeling tired. Her little car was running almost empty. She parked near the last pump and looked at the price of fuel. It was higher than usual, and she sighed as she checked her wallet. She had just enough to fill half the tank. Maria was a single mother raising her 8-year-old son, Kevin. Life had not been easy for her. She worked long hours, often skipping meals to make sure Kevin had everything he needed. Her husband had left years ago, leaving her with debts and a broken heart. Still, she stayed strong. Every morning, she told herself that one day things would get better. As she started pumping gas, she noticed a group of motorcycles pulling into the station. The roar of their engines broke the silence of the night. They were big, heavy bikes, painted black and red. The men riding them wore leather jackets with patches. On the back of one jacket, she saw a skull with wings and the words, "Hell's Angels." For a moment, fear touched her heart. She had heard stories about motorcycle gangs, and most were not pleasant. The bikers parked near the convenience store. One of them, a tall man with a short beard and long hair tied back, walked toward the pump beside her. His jacket looked old, and his boots were worn. He seemed tired too. He searched his pockets, frowned, and then checked again. It looked like he had forgotten something. Maria watched him from the corner of her eye. He opened his wallet, but it was empty. His expression changed slightly, showing frustration. The cashier inside had already turned the sign that said, "Card machine not working, cash only." The man looked around, clearly upset. His motorcycle was still running low on fuel. Maria felt a small pull in her heart. She knew what it felt like to be short of money at the wrong time. Without thinking too much, she called out to him, "Excuse me, sir. You need help?" He looked at her with surprise. His voice was deep when he replied, "Guess I forgot my cash. I was just trying to get enough to reach the next town." Maria looked at her small wallet again. She had some cash left after filling her car, maybe enough to buy a little food for tomorrow. She hesitated, but then she smiled slightly. "It's okay. I can pay for your gas. Just a few gallons, maybe." The man looked confused. "You sure? You don't even know me." Maria nodded. "It's fine. You look like you had a long ride. Everyone needs help sometimes." He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he gave a small smile, almost hidden under his beard. "Thank you, ma'am. Name's Rick." She nodded. "I'm Maria." Rick filled his tank with a small amount, just enough to ride again. When he was done, he thanked her again. "I'll pay you back," he said. She waved her hand. "Don't worry about it. Just do something kind for someone else someday." He looked at her carefully. "You got a good heart. Not many like that left." He looked toward her car, where a small child's toy was lying on the seat. "You got a kid?" "Yes, my son Kevin. He's at home sleeping." Rick nodded slowly. "You take care of him. This world's not always kind." Maria smiled softly. "I know." He turned to leave, but then stopped again. "Be careful, all right? Nights aren't always safe around here." She didn't understand what he meant, but she nodded. The group of bikers started their engines and rode off, their headlights vanishing into the night. The sound faded, leaving only the quiet hum of the rain. Maria went home, still thinking about the strange man at the gas station. She told herself it was nothing, just one of those random moments life throws at you. She made sure the doors were locked and went to check on Kevin. He was asleep, hugging his small toy truck. She smiled, kissed his forehead, and turned off the light. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Maria stood near the window for a while, looking out at the street. Something in her felt unsettled. Maybe it was the way Rick had looked back before leaving, like he knew something she didn't. She brushed the thought away and went to bed. The next morning started as usual. Maria dropped Kevin at school and went to the diner. The morning crowd was busy, and she worked hard to serve everyone. Around lunchtime, she noticed a man sitting near the corner table. He was wearing a dark jacket and cap, and he kept looking at her. When she walked past, he looked away quickly. It made her feel uneasy. Later that evening, she saw the same man standing near the bus stop when she was leaving work. He looked at her again, but didn't say anything. She walked faster toward her car, pretending not to notice. As she drove home, she kept checking the rearview mirror. A small white car seemed to be following her for several blocks. She turned twice, but the car stayed behind. Her heart began to beat faster. When she reached her neighborhood, she parked quickly and ran inside. She locked the doors and looked out the window. The white car passed slowly, then turned around the corner. Maria stood there for a long time, breathing hard. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to worry anyone, not even her son. That night, after putting Kevin to bed, she heard a noise outside. It was like footsteps near the gate. She turned off the lights and peeked through the curtains. 2 figures were standing near her fence, looking at her house. One of them pointed toward her car. Fear rushed through her. She wanted to call someone, but she didn't know who. She had no close friends nearby and didn't trust the local police much. Suddenly, she remembered Rick, the biker from the night before. He had said to be careful. He had looked like someone who understood danger, but she didn't know where to find him or how to contact him. She stayed quiet and waited. After a few minutes, the men walked away. She could still feel her hands shaking. Maria hardly slept that night. Every sound made her heart jump. When morning came, she looked tired and pale. She told herself maybe she was overthinking. Maybe it was nothing serious. Still, she decided to walk Kevin to school that morning instead of driving. She held his hand tightly, watching every car that passed. At work, she tried to act normal, but her thoughts kept going back to the strange men outside her house. What did they want? Why were they watching her? The unease stayed with her all day. She didn't know that someone else had also seen what happened the night before. Someone who remembered a kind woman who had once paid for his gas. Rick was riding his motorcycle across the open road when the memory of the kind woman at the gas station came back to him. The rain had stopped that morning, and the air was cool and clear. His crew had spent the night in a small motel outside town, cleaning their bikes and fixing a flat tire. Normally, Rick did not think much about strangers, but Maria's face kept coming to his mind. Her calm voice, her tired smile, and the way she helped without asking for anything in return had left a mark on him. Rick had been part of the Hells Angels for many years. He was not a bad man, but he had lived through rough times. The world had judged him by the jacket he wore, but inside he still had a sense of loyalty and fairness. He had grown up poor, learned to fight for respect, and stayed alive by keeping his word. When someone helped him without expecting anything back, it meant something real to him. That morning, while packing his things, one of his crew members, Tom, noticed Rick lost in thought. "You thinking about that lady from the gas station?" he asked with a small grin. Rick nodded. "Yeah, she helped me when I was stuck. Single mom, working late, raising a kid. Reminded me of my own mother." Tom nodded slowly. "You don't see that kind of kindness much anymore." Rick looked toward the road. "No, you don't. I told her to be careful last night." Something about her place felt off. The neighborhood looked quiet, but not safe. Tom shrugged. "You think she's in trouble?" Rick stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "I don't know, but I've learned to trust my gut. And my gut says something's wrong. Later that evening, the crew stopped near a small diner on the edge of town. As Rick walked inside, he froze for a second. On the wall near the counter, a small television was playing local news. The reporter was talking about a rise in break-ins and suspicious activity in the Brookfield area. Several women had reported being followed home late at night. Rick's attention sharpened. Brookfield was the same town where Maria lived. He sat down and ordered coffee. His thoughts ran fast. Maybe he was overthinking, but he couldn't shake the feeling. He turned to Tom. "We're going back to Brookfield tonight." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Why? We got no business there." Rick's tone was firm. "We got one. A woman who did us a favor. I don't like leaving debts unpaid." Tom smiled slightly. "You always were the loyal type." As night came, the motorcycles roared back into the quiet streets of Brookfield. The crew rode together, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Rick led the way, keeping his eyes sharp. He didn't know Maria's exact address, but he remembered the direction she drove off after leaving the gas station. They started searching that area, looking for any signs of trouble. Meanwhile, Maria was at home again, trying to keep calm. She had finished work early and brought Kevin home from school. They ate a simple dinner and watched a cartoon together. But as night fell, her worry returned. She couldn't stop thinking about the men she saw near her house the night before. She made sure the doors and windows were locked again. Kevin noticed her nervousness. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked her softly. Maria smiled and brushed his hair. "I'm fine, baby. Just a little tired." After he went to bed, she sat by the window, watching the street. Around 10 o'clock, she saw a car drive slowly past her house again. It was the same white car from before. Her heart began to race. The car stopped a little ahead, and two men stepped out. They looked around, whispering to each other. One of them pointed toward her house. Maria turned off the lights and picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking as she thought of calling the police, but she hesitated. The last time she had called them, they had taken hours to respond. Then she remembered Rick again. She didn't know where he lived, but she whispered a small prayer that he was okay somewhere out there. She didn't know that he was already on his way. Outside, Rick and his crew were riding slowly through the neighborhood. Suddenly, Tom pointed toward a white car parked down the road. "You see that?" he asked. Rick nodded. "Yeah, two guys near that fence." They stopped their bikes and turned off the engines. The night grew quiet again. The streetlights flickered weakly. From a distance, Rick could see the two men standing near a small house. One of them climbed the fence and looked around. The other pulled something from his jacket. Rick's jaw tightened. He didn't like what he saw. "Tom, Mike," Rick said quietly. "We check it out. Rest of you stay back." The three men moved silently, their heavy boots making soft sounds on the wet ground. When they reached the corner, Rick saw the woman's car parked outside. He recognized it at once. It was Maria's. His heart started beating faster. He whispered to Tom, "That's her house." The man near the fence was trying to open a side gate. The other stood watch, scanning the street. Rick stepped out of the shadow and spoke firmly. "You two got business here?" The men turned sharply. One of them cursed and stepped back. "Who are you?" Rick took another step forward. "I asked what you're doing near this house." The taller man tried to sound tough. "Mind your own business." Tom and Mike stepped beside Rick, their leather jackets showing the Hell's Angel symbol. The men froze for a second. Rick's voice stayed calm, but carried a hard edge. "You got 3 seconds to leave before this becomes your business too." The men looked at each other. They were not expecting to face a biker crew. They mumbled something and hurried back to their car. Rick watched them drive off fast into the dark. He waited until the car disappeared completely before turning toward the house. Inside, Maria had seen everything through the window. Her hands were still trembling, but when she saw Rick standing under the streetlight, her fear started to fade. She opened the door slightly and called out, "Rick?" He looked up and gave a small nod. "You all right?" She stepped outside carefully. "Yes, I was so scared. They were here again." Rick nodded. "We saw them. They won't come back tonight." Maria looked at him with relief. "How did you know?" Rick gave a short smile. "Let's just say I was passing by." "Lucky timing." Tom grinned. "Lucky for them we showed up." Maria thanked them again and again. Rick looked around the street before speaking. "You got someone to stay with you tonight?" She shook her head. "No, it's just me and Kevin." Rick thought for a moment. "All right. We'll keep an eye from the road till morning." "You don't have to worry." Maria hesitated but nodded. She could feel that Rick meant what he said. She went inside and locked the door again, watching from the window as the bikers stayed nearby. Their engines silent. Rick stood near his bike, looking at her house. "Good woman," he said quietly. "No one should have to live scared like that." Tom looked at him. "You think they'll be back?" Rick's eyes narrowed. "Maybe, and if they do, they'll find us waiting." That night, under the pale moonlight, the rumble of motorcycles stayed near Maria's street. Inside her small house, Maria finally slept peacefully for the first time in days, not knowing that outside, the men she helped once were now standing guard to protect her and her son. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over Brookfield, lighting up the quiet streets. Maria woke up feeling lighter than she had in a long time. She had slept through the night without fear, though she remembered hearing the soft hum of motorcycle engines outside now and then. When she looked through the window, she saw nothing but empty road, yet the sight gave her comfort. She had a feeling someone had truly watched over her. She got Kevin ready for school, making him a small breakfast. He noticed her smiling more than usual. "You seem happy today, Mom," he said with his mouth full of cereal. Maria laughed softly. "I think today will be a good day, baby." She walked him to school, keeping her eyes open, but everything seemed calm. The white car was nowhere to be seen. On her way back, she thought about Rick. She still found it strange that a biker crew had protected her home. It sounded like something out of a movie. Yet, it was real. She had seen them standing under the streetlight. She remembered the serious look in Rick's eyes, a mix of strength and quiet kindness. At the same time, Rick and his crew had gathered at a small garage near the highway. It was a place they used to fix their bikes and rest between rides. The group sat around, drinking coffee and checking their engines. Tom looked at Rick and asked, "You think those guys will come back?" Rick wiped his hands with a cloth. "Men like that don't stop easy. They'll wait, watch, and try again." I saw it in their faces. Mike, another crew member, frowned. "So, what's the plan?" "We gonna stay here?" Rick nodded. "For a few days, yes. I want to make sure she's safe." Tom raised an eyebrow. "You're really going all in for this woman?" Rick looked at him seriously. "She helped me when she didn't have to. You don't forget that kind of thing." The crew respected that. They all had their rough sides, but loyalty was something they understood deeply. Rick's word was enough. That night, they returned to the neighborhood, staying parked at a distance. The locals saw them and whispered, wondering why a group of bikers was hanging around. But Rick didn't care what they thought. He had a promise in his heart, and he planned to keep it. Maria finished her shift at the diner and started walking toward her car. The streetlights were on, and the air smelled of rain again. Just as she reached her car, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw the same man from before, the one with the dark jacket. Her stomach tightened with fear. He smiled faintly, but it wasn't friendly. "Evening," he said. Maria froze. "What do you want?" The man took a step closer. "You've been avoiding us." Maria's heart started to beat faster. She reached into her purse, trying to find her phone. The man's smile disappeared. "Don't make it hard," he said. "You should have been nice before." Before she could move, a loud sound broke the silence. The deep roar of motorcycle engines filled the air. The man turned sharply. Rick and his crew rode up from the end of the street, their headlights flashing bright. They stopped near Maria's car. The man backed away at once. Rick stepped off his bike, his eyes cold. "That's enough," he said firmly. The man stuttered. "This isn't your business." Rick took a slow step forward. "It became my business when you scared her." The other bikers spread out behind him, forming a wall of leather jackets and silent strength. The man looked around, realized he was outnumbered, and ran off down the street. Rick didn't chase him. He turned to Maria. "You all right?" Maria nodded weakly. "Yes, thank you." Again. Rick looked around. "They're watching you, Maria. They won't stop just because we showed up. You need someone to call if it happens again." Maria took a breath. "I don't have anyone. Just you, I guess." Rick reached into his jacket and handed her a small card with a number written on it. "This is my number. Call anytime, day or night. No questions asked." She looked at the card, then back at him. "I don't even know what to say." Rick smiled slightly. "Just stay safe." "That's enough." He helped her get into her car, then watched as she drove away. Tom came up beside him. "She's brave," Tom said. "Most people would have moved out already." Rick nodded. "She's got a kid. She can't run from everything. She's fighting in her own way." That night, Maria called her mother, who lived in another city, to tell her everything. Her mother worried, of course, but Maria said she had help now. She didn't mention the bikers by name, only said that a friend was watching out for her. She didn't want her mother to worry more than she already did. Meanwhile, Rick couldn't shake the thought that the man might return with others. He decided to find out who they were. Were. The next morning, he went to a local mechanic who knew many people around town. The mechanic was an older man named Joe, who used to be close to several biker groups. Rick showed him a photo of the white car he had taken on his phone. Joe studied it for a moment. "Yeah, I seen that car before. Belongs to some guy named Ben, small-time troublemaker. Used to hang around a junkyard on East Street. Heard he's been working with others doing dirty stuff lately." Rick nodded slowly. "Appreciate it." That night, Rick and his crew rode to East Street. The place was dark and quiet, except for a few broken lights near an old junkyard gate. They parked their bikes and moved in on foot. Inside the yard, they saw 3 men talking beside a car. One of them was the same man who had followed Maria. Rick watched from behind a stack of metal, his eyes hard. He listened to their words. "She's alone with her kid," one man said. "We can scare her again tomorrow night. She'd give up and leave." The others laughed. Rick's fists just tightened. He had heard enough. He stepped out of the shadow and spoke loudly. "You picked the wrong woman." The men turned in shock. Tom and Mike came out behind him. The men recognized them and backed away. "You again," one said in fear. Rick's tone stayed calm. "This ends tonight. You go near her again, and we'll have a real problem." The men tried to sound brave. "You don't scare us." Tom crossed his arms. "Then maybe we should." Rick didn't start a fight. He only stared them down until they lowered their eyes and left. His voice was low but firm. "If you come back, we'll be waiting." The message was clear. By the time Rick and his crew left the junkyard, he knew they wouldn't be back soon. But he also knew trouble had a way of finding good people, and he wasn't planning to disappear yet. Back at home, Maria tucked Kevin into bed. She looked out the window and thought she saw motorcycle lights far in the distance. She smiled softly, whispering a small thank you into the night. She didn't know how long Rick would stay, but she was grateful he had crossed her path. Rick, sitting near his bike at the highway stop, looked up at the same sky. "Rest easy, Maria," he said quietly. "You're safe tonight." But deep down, he knew it wasn't over yet. The quiet before dawn carried a sense of something bigger coming, something that would test all of them soon. A few peaceful days passed in Brookfield. The sun came out bright, the streets stayed quiet, and life seemed normal again. Maria started to relax a little. She still checked the windows at night and locked the doors twice, but she began to believe the danger had passed. Kevin went back to playing outside with his friends, laughing in the yard. For the first time in weeks, Maria smiled freely. Rick and his crew had kept their promise. They watched the area from a distance, taking turns riding through her street every evening. None of them said it out loud, but they felt proud of what they were doing. They were men used to being feared or judged, but now they were protecting someone who had once shown them kindness. It gave them a sense of purpose they didn't feel often. One afternoon, Rick rode alone to the diner where Maria worked. He parked outside, wiped his hands, and walked in. Maria was behind the counter serving coffee to a customer. When she saw him, her face brightened. "Rick, you came," she said warmly. Rick nodded. "Just checking in." "You been okay?" She smiled. "Yes, thanks to you and your friends. I feel safer now." Rick looked around the diner. "Good place. You work hard." Maria poured him a cup of coffee. "It's not much, but it helps pay the bills. Kevin's school fees are coming soon." Rick nodded again. "You're doing great. He's lucky to have you." She smiled at his words. For a moment, the tension in her life faded. Rick's calm voice and quiet strength made her feel protected. They talked for a few minutes before he stood to leave. "Anything happens, call me," he reminded her. "I will," she said, and she meant it. As Rick rode away, he noticed a black van parked across the street. It wasn't there when he arrived. His instincts kicked in. He slowed his bike, pretending to check his mirror. The van's windows were tinted. Something about it felt wrong. He memorized the number plate before driving off. That night, Rick sat with his crew near their camp outside town. The fire crackled as they talked about their next ride. Tom noticed Rick wasn't paying attention. "You saw something, didn't you?" he asked. Rick looked at him. "A van, black, no markings, parked across from her work. I didn't like it." Tom leaned forward. "You think it's them again?" Rick nodded slowly. "Could be. Or someone worse." Mike frowned. "Then we should find out." Rick agreed. "We will tonight." While the crew prepared, Maria finished her shift at the diner. It was already dark when she walked to her car. The street seemed quiet, but her old feeling of unease returned. She unlocked her car and got in quickly. As she started the engine, she saw headlights flash behind her. A black van was following her again. Maria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She turned left, then right, trying to lose it. The van stayed close. Her heart raced. She grabbed her phone and called Rick's number. The line rang once before his voice answered. "Maria?" "Rick, it's me," she said, her voice shaking. "That van is following me. I don't know what to do." Rick stood up at once. "Where are you?" "I just passed the grocery store near the gas station." "Keep driving straight," Rick said. "We're coming." He ended the call and started his bike. The other bikers followed him without asking questions. The engines roared to life, echoing through the night. They sped through the empty streets, following the route she mentioned. Maria kept driving, tears forming in her eyes. The van was getting closer. She saw it in the mirror, the headlights glaring. She prayed silently for help. Then, from behind a turn, she saw motorcycle lights appear like a wave of fire. Rick and his crew surrounded her car, forming a moving shield. The van slowed down at once. Rick rode beside her window and shouted, "Keep driving. Don't stop." She nodded, gripping the wheel tightly. The bikers spread out behind her, blocking the van's path. When the van tried to overtake, Tom's bike swerved in front of it, forcing it to stop. Mike and another rider jumped off and approached the van. The driver panicked, reversing quickly before speeding away in the opposite direction. Rick watched it disappear down the road. He pulled over and signaled Maria to stop. She parked by the roadside, still trembling. Rick walked up to her car window. "You okay?" he asked softly. Maria nodded weakly. "Yes, you got there so fast." Rick gave a half smile. "You called. I don't leave people behind." She stepped out of the car and took a deep breath. "They won't stop, will they?" Rick looked toward the dark road. "Not yet. But they will soon." Tom walked up. "We got the plate number. We can find who's behind this." Rick nodded. "Do it. I want to know who's playing these games." Maria thanked them again. Rick told her to go home and lock the doors. "We'll take care of the rest," he said firmly. When she reached home, Kevin was waiting by the window. He ran to her and hugged her tight. "You're late, Mom. I was worried." She smiled and held him close. "I'm okay, baby. Just a long day." Outside, the bikers stood by the road, guarding the area once more. Rick made a call to a friend who worked in a nearby towing yard. Within an hour, he got the answer. The black van belonged to a man named Carter, one of the same people seen near the junkyard weeks ago. He had a record of following women and causing trouble. Rick's eyes hardened. "It's the same group. They didn't learn." Tom looked at him. "What's the plan?" Rick's voice was quiet but strong. "We end this tomorrow night." The next evening, the crew rode out again. They followed the trail to the junkyard where the van was parked. Inside, they found 3 men talking around a fire. Carter was there, laughing. Rick stepped forward, his boots crunching on gravel. The men turned sharply. One recognized him and cursed. Rick spoke calmly. "You keep coming back." "Why?" Carter smirked. "That woman thinks she's better than us. You can't protect her forever." Rick's tone changed, low and cold. "You're done bothering her. You stay away, or next time it won't end with words." The men looked at each other. One tried to stand tall, but the sight of a full biker crew surrounding them broke their courage. Rick stepped closer. "She's under our protection now. You got a problem with her, you got a problem with me." Carter's smirk faded. He muttered something and waved his men to leave. They got into the van and drove off quickly. Rick watched them go, then turned to his crew. "We keep an eye on her a few more nights. Then we move on." Back at home, Maria sat by the window again, watching the moonlight touch the street. She could see the faint reflection of a motorcycle light in the distance. She knew Rick was still out there. Her heart felt safe. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in the world. Later that night, when Rick stopped by the diner to grab some water, Maria called him. "Thank you, Rick," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay you." Rick's voice was calm. "You already did. You helped me when no one else did. That's all." Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "I just did what anyone should do." Rick smiled too. "Not everyone does. But you did. And because of that, you'll never stand alone again." As the night settled over Brookfield, both of them felt something change. It wasn't just about protection anymore. It was about faith, kindness, and loyalty between two people from very different worlds who had met at a gas station one rainy night. The next morning brought calmness that felt strange to Maria. For the first time in weeks, she could drink her coffee without checking the windows. The sunlight fell softly across her kitchen table, where her son Leo was eating breakfast. He looked peaceful, as if the fear that had shadowed their small home had finally lifted. Outside, the street was quiet. No strange cars, no men watching, no dark feeling following her every step. Maria sat down, watching her son and thinking of what had happened the night before. It felt like a dream, but the smell of burned tires and the sound of engines still rang in her mind. Tom and his crew had done what the police failed to do. They had scared off the men who had haunted her for months. She didn't understand exactly how they did it, and maybe she didn't want to know. But she knew one thing: she was safe because of them. Later that day, Maria drove to the gas station where it all began. The station was quiet too, and she could almost see the moment replay: Tom's bike stopping beside her car, his low voice, her hand reaching out with the money. That one small act had changed everything. She parked her car and stepped out. The air smelled like rain, and the sky was filled with soft gray clouds. As she stood by the pump, she heard the familiar deep rumble of motorcycles approaching. Her heart jumped, but it wasn't fear this time. It was something else, maybe gratitude or even a strange feeling of connection. Tom stopped in front of her, wearing the same leather jacket with the red and white logo. His face looked tired but calm. He took off his helmet and smiled slightly. Behind him, 3 riders parked their bikes and waited quietly, watching the road. Maria smiled back. "I didn't think I'd see you again," she said. Tom nodded slowly. "Just wanted to make sure everything was fine. Those guys won't bother you anymore." "I can't thank you enough," Maria said softly. "You didn't have to do that." Tom looked away for a moment, then said, "You didn't have to help me either. You paid for my gas when I was out of cash. You didn't know who I was, but you still did it. That kind of kindness doesn't come around much." Maria felt her chest tighten. "It was just gas," she said quietly. Tom shook his head. "Maybe to you, but you did it without asking for anything. I remember that kind of thing. My crew does too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small patch, red and black with the words, "Ride Forever." He handed it to her. "Keep this. You ever get in trouble again, show it to any of us. Someone will come." Maria hesitated but took it carefully. The cloth felt rough under her fingers, but it carried a strange kind of weight, like a silent promise. Leo came running out of the car, excited to see the bikes. "Mom, look! They're so cool," he said. Y-I. Tom smiled slightly. "You like bikes, kid?" Leo nodded fast. "Yeah. They sound like thunder." Tom laughed, the sound deep and warm. "Thunder can be good when it keeps away the bad weather," he said. Maria laughed too, feeling lighter than she had in months. For the first time, she didn't see Tom as a stranger from a rough world. She saw him as a man with his own kind of honor, different from hers. But just as real. When they said goodbye, the riders left as quietly as they came. The sound of their engines faded down the street until there was only the soft wind. Maria stood there holding the patch, her fingers brushing over the threads. That night, she placed the patch in a small box beside her bed. It wasn't just a piece of cloth anymore. It was a reminder that kindness could travel in unexpected directions. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Maria worked her shifts at the diner and spent her evenings helping Leo with his homework. People in town still whispered about the strange night when a group of bikers appeared out of nowhere. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were heroes. Maria didn't say anything. She just smiled when she heard the stories. One afternoon, while she was serving coffee to a customer, a woman at the counter asked, You heard about that biker gang who scared off those men near Oak Street? My cousin lives there. Said it was wild. Maria poured the coffee and said softly, "Sometimes good things come from surprising places." The woman nodded without really understanding, and Maria walked away, hiding a small smile. Every now and then, Maria would hear the sound of motorcycles passing through town. She would look out the window, and her heart would lift a little. Maybe one of them was Tom, maybe not. But she always whispered a quiet thank you when she heard that sound. One day, Leo found the patch in her box and asked what it was. "It's a sign of help," Maria said with a small smile. "It means someone out there is watching over us." Leo thought about it, then asked, "Because you helped him first?" "Yes," Maria said. "Sometimes when you help someone, it comes back when you need it the most." That night, as she tucked Leo into bed, Maria looked out the window at the stars. She remembered how afraid she had been, how helpless she had felt. But now, she felt strong. Maybe she didn't have power or money or connections, but she had something better: courage, kindness, and a strange brotherhood she never expected. In the distance, a faint rumble rolled across the quiet streets. It was the sound of bikes moving somewhere beyond town. Fading into the night, Maria smiled to herself and whispered, "Ride safe, Tom." The world outside was still full of danger, but Maria no longer felt alone in it. One small act of kindness had built a bridge between two very different lives, a mother and a biker. And sometimes, she thought, that was all it took to change everything.